Okay, today we're going to learn about the cardiac cycle. So my anticipatory set is a video from YouTube, and it's going to tell you about the cardiac cycle and how the blood pumps through the heart.
Blood returning from the upper part of the body is delivered to the right atrium of the heart by the superior vena cava, one of the body's two largest veins, while blood returning from the lower part of the body is delivered to the right atrium by the other major vein, the inferior vena cava. Contraction of the right atrium in each cardiac cycle forces blood into the right ventricle. This is followed by contraction of the right ventricle, which pumps blood into the pulmonary artery, sending it on through the blood vessels of the lungs. As the right ventricle contracts and pressure within the right ventricle rises, the tricuspid valve situated at the opening between the right atrium and right ventricle shuts, preventing any backflow. The pressure generated by contraction of the right ventricle soon opens the pulmonary valve and blood enters the circulation of the lungs. After passing through the circulation of the lungs, the blood, having been recharged with oxygen and having rid itself of carbon dioxide, is returned through the pulmonary veins to the left atrium. The left atrium, too, contracts, forwarding blood into the left ventricle in order to fill it before it contracts. As the powerful left ventricle contracts, the mitral valve shuts, preventing backflow into the left atrium. The aortic valve opens and blood is forced into the aorta, which distributes it to the rest of the body apart from the lungs. As the contraction comes to an end and pressure in the aorta falls, the aortic valve snaps shut to prevent backflow into the left ventricle.
Okay, and there's that video, and I have this picture over here that shows how all the blood flows through there, and I'll tell you about phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 of the cardiac cycle. Phase 1 is atrial systole, and it lasts about 0.15 seconds, and during that phase, both of the atria are contracted and the ventricles are relaxed. And the rising blood pressure in the atria forces the blood to enter the two ventricles through the AV valves. And both of those AV valves are open and the semilunar valves are closed, and so then there isn't any backflow of the blood. Phase 2 is the ventricular systole, and the time of it is 0.30 seconds. During that phase, both of the ventricles are contracted while the atria are relaxed. And the rising blood pressure in the ventricles forces the semilunar valves, the aortic and the pulmonary, to open. Blood in the right ventricle exits through the pulmonary artery trunk to the right and left pulmonary arteries. And the blood in the left ventricle exits into the aorta, and during ventricular systole, both semilunar valves are open and the atrioventricular valves are closed. And that ventricular systole ends as the ventricles complete their pumping job, and the backflow of blood in the pulmonary artery and aorta forces the semilunar valves to slam shut again. And the closure of those semilunar valves is what makes the heart noise that you hear. The heart makes a lub-dub sound pretty much, and the AV valves closing in the atrial systole is the lub part, and then the dub part is the semilunar valves closing. And then atrial and ventricular diastole is about 0.40 seconds, and during that period both atria and both ventricles are in diastole, which is relaxed. At this point, pressure in all the heart chambers is low. Blood returning to the heart from the superior and inferior vena cava and the pulmonary veins fills the right and left atria and flows passively into the ventricles. And the blood flows back into the heart at that time. So here's a EKG right here, and it shows a cycle of the heart. So those are the different, that's the lub, that's the dub, and so it's just, that's what that